And now, live from the Neverland Theatre, your host, Gary Starr. Hello, a very good evening to you. Welcome to StageToStream.tv, live here from the Neverland Theatre, here in the wonderful town of Skeg, Vegas. How are you doing today? Are you well? Have you had a good day? Good. Well, it's nice of you to join us this evening. We have got a fantastic show for you this evening with a most wonderful guest. Yes, indeed. Let's find out who that is. What's on tonight? Live tonight on StageToStream.tv. The sensational Robert J. Sherman. It's all happening tonight, right here on... Yes, that is very exciting this evening. We're over the moon this evening that Robert can join us this evening, and we're going to be speaking to him very shortly indeed. Now, before we start, as always, what we ask you to do is share the stream, yes. And you're now part of the community. You're here with us each and every evening. Some of you share the stream, send it to your friends, and of course, make sure you get some reactions in the chat. Let's see some likes, some love hearts. It helps us get out there socially. It really does. So, yeah, hope you've had a good day. Welcome. Tonight is very exciting. I think you'll agree. But before we go on, I need to bring her in. She's here right now. It's Right Hand Ruthie.
Right hand Ruthie, right hand Ruthie.
Right Hand Ruthie. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Great.
Yes.
How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. You're looking no longer moon face anymore.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know. We've sorted the lighting. We've sorted your makeup. Your hair is on point. And as Harry Steadman messaged me and said, your banter is also on point.
I thought you were going to say awful.
No. I think, we are where we need to be right now.
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
It is very good in a way. Yeah. So how's your day been? Been exciting?
Oh, it's been bad.
Has it been bad? Oh, no. Why? What happened?
Well, when you need to do something that's like a really easy task and everything just goes wrong. Mm-hmm. It's been one of those days.
I do that quite often.
Yeah.
What are we talking about in specifically? What's gone wrong?
Right hand Ruthie, right hand Ruthie.
Tell us about it. Yeah. What's gone wrong?
Well, I needed to go to the post office.
Ooh, easy job.
Should be.
Yep.
Apparently it's not. Well, as you know, we're based in Skegness and there is now... Well, there's no post office in the immediate town centre at all. So I thought, that's all right. I need to go and tick the van over anyway, the Pantomobile, the Panto van.
Yep.
So headed up to where we park it. It's fine, not a problem. Drove out. There's roadworks everywhere in Skegness, and there has been for quite some time.
There is.
Probably the best part of this year and actually the back end of last year as well.
Lots of roadworks, yeah.
All over the place.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
But that's good.
Well, at least they're getting the work done that they need to.
We need the roads repaired.
We do. Problem with it is I don't have very good sense of direction. You might actually say that I've got the same sense of direction as a teaspoon. Just really bad.
Okay, what
going
happened?
In the right direction.
You
Well, I
went
got
to the
lost,
post office.
Gary. I got lost.
Okay, so you went to the post office, which I can point out is precisely 2 miles up the road. It's not a far drive. And you were gone for quite a long time. I was getting worried. I phoned the hospitals and the police.
Did you though?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to 2 miles up the road?
About an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, I took the wrong road. I thought, well, I'll cut down here. So I cut down this particular road. And of course, the road that I needed to get onto then was blocked. And I was like, oh no, what are we going to do? Follow the diversion sign. Diversion sign took me out of Skegness.
Wow.
And I went to a totally different part, Burley Marsh. And at this point, I thought, this doesn't seem right. So I just turned round and came back again. So that took about 20 minutes. And then tried turning back down the road and realised again it's still blocked off because it has been for quite some time.
Yeah.
Went down a different road, thought I'll cut down there. That was closed as well.
It's a good story. Keep going. No, keep going, yeah.
Well, then it's one of those things. Have you ever done it when you've ended up somewhere and you just don't want to look silly? So let me explain. What I did was I drove down another blocked road and And I didn't want to just turn around because, I was like, oh, it's really awkward because all the workmen were there and I was like, this is a massive van. It's very awkward.
Yeah.
So what I did is I pulled into the car park of the Co-op and just thought I'll just go in and buy something. So I did that so I didn't look silly. Came back out, found the right road.
Wait. So you used the car park to turn round in?
Yeah.
But you didn't want to look silly turning round in a car park, so you went and bought something?
Yeah.
What did you buy?
Nurofen.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got toothache. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
But then I found the right road and I made it. So we're all right. It just took a very long time to get there.
You know what that is, don't you?
What?
It is. Oh.
Fun fact of the day.
Oh, do you know what? I had one job.
You had one.
I'm trying to... Well, I've got like 6 things going on right now, and I didn't unmute the fact that it is...
It's Ruth's fun fact of the day.
Listen, the point is, with all this, right, normally a TV show would have people doing the technical, the camera angles, the music, the hot starts, everything. I'm trying to do everything. I'm going crazy here. It's happening. But that's why I keep looking away, which annoys me as well. When I watch this back, I'm never looking at the camera. Hello. Good. So you got lost, Ruth.
I did get lost. It wasn't really a fact, though. It's not a fact. It's just what happened.
No, it's a fun fact.
To be fair, it's everyday life with me. It's one of the things that I've not been blessed with is a sense of direction.
No, but what you have been blessed with is a sat nav, because I bought one of them, but you don't use it. And
true.
Also, there's one on your phone.
Yeah, but also sometimes when you put a postcode in, it doesn't take you where you need to go, and then you have to work it out. But like when you're doing like a long journey and you pull in to like refuel or whatever, and you're coming, particularly at the big service stations. Now, everybody that's been in the van with me at some point will know that this is true. I can never find my way out. Mainly because where you think the exit would be, it's just not there. Or the signs are missing. Or it's rubbed off on the floor because they paint it on the floor, don't they? Exit with the arrows. But they're gone. And nobody repaints them. And it might be common sense to some people as to where the exit is. But for me personally, it's just not.
Brilliant. Top banter, Ruth. Now, we're in social media corner right now. If they want to get involved, what do they need to do?
Yeah. So hop onto stagetostream.tv on Facebook. So if you're watching any of the streams, we're sharing it absolutely everywhere. Garry Star Pantomimes, Neverland Theatre, Garry Star Creative, all these other places. Stop watching it on there. Head on straight over to stagetostream.tv. Watch it on there.
Yeah.
Give us a like in the comments. If you like this stream and also share it, your name will pop up in lights as well, which is very nice.
Yeah, it just did. Tommy J. Rodson shared the stream.
There you go.
Thank you.
Famous. There you go.
Yeah.
Do that. Also, just pop in and say hi. The more interaction you have on the stream, the more people see it. And the more people that see it, the more people get to listen to my terrible stories.
True that. Now, of course, they can WhatsApp or text you if they want to talk to you directly.
They can.
How did they do that, Ruthie?
Well, the number is just down here to my left. And the number is...
07510 followed by 891 then 005. Let's get social.
What was that number again?
That's 07510
Of course.
followed by 891 then 005.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's the number. Courtesy of Mr. James
That's what
Harrison.
they're going to do, isn't it? Thank you, James. James Harrison out there. Genius.
Making us sound good.
Yeah. Makes you sound good.
He does.
Yeah. So what's happening in Social Corner? Because, we need to talk to people. Let's do it.
Oh, have I said it wrong? Well, apparently Steve Andrews pronounced Burley Marsh again. Burley Marsh. Right, now this is the thing. For those people that aren't local...
It's Burr.
It's spelled B-U-R-G-H
Burr.
space
They say
L-E
Burr.
space M-A-R-S-H.
They say Burr.
Burley Marsh.
Burley Marsh.
Burley Marsh.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise you get in trouble.
But Chris de Burgh, how does he spell his last name?
It don't matter. I lived there. I lived in Burley Marsh, and it's a very posh area. But, that you have to say it right. Burley Marsh.
Burley Marsh.
Yeah.
Good Chinese in there.
Yeah. Steve Hewlett. Ruth has terrible stories, but she has a lovely voice.
Thanks.
Oh, that's
I
good.
think it might be sarcasm, I don't know.
No, I think that's genuinely complimentary.
Or he thinks it's actually me singing that telephone number. It's not. No.
Shh, don't ruin the illusion for people.
Yeah, okay, that. Kelly Rogan, she couldn't get off the driveway without sat nav. I hear you, Kelly. Do you get lost in service stations too? Because I'll be honest with you, it's a bit of a nightmare. Terrible.
Just thinking about it while we're here, what we need to do is, James Harrison, if you're watching, we need to get the lady on that does the voice for 07.
You just said not to spoil it. You've just reiterated that it's definitely not me.
Yeah, but we need to get her on. So, you know, put us in contact, hit us up.
It might be James himself.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. Apparently you weren't very good because you moved your lips when you were lip syncing.
Do you know what? Do you know what? I still don't actually know the number myself.
No, I don't.
I've got the second half, but the first bit, and it's the 5. It's the 5 after the 7 because, you know what I mean?
Nicola Martin says, we love you, Ruth.
Oh, thanks. We love you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got very high pitch then, didn't I?
You did, yeah. But I love you in a way. Yeah.
Steve Hewlett's been diverted for 45 minutes many times and ended up at the same blocked road at 1:30am 3 hours from home. Steve, I'm going to stop you there because I got caught on a traffic cam speeding whilst I was sat in a traffic jam. How does that work? No idea.
That's good. It's beautiful. It's beautiful banter, Ruth, and top banter. I think you'll agree from all of us. We're going to have more of that top banter from you, Ruth, a little bit later on. If people want to get in touch, of course they can WhatsApp or text. They can jump on to the live chat, which is happening right now, and send your questions because we need them very shortly indeed, don't we?
We do, yes.
We do.
Just going to stop you there again. Beverly Charles has said, Skegness isn't that big, surely. No, it's not. But I'll tell you what's smaller, the village that I grew up in. And I still get lost in that. You can go from one end to the other, walking in about 10 minutes. There's not a lot of roads. Still get lost.
You can get lost walking.
I
You
lived
know
there
what that
for
is,
18
don't you?
years of my life.
You know what that is, don't you, Ruth?
No.
It's this.
Fun fact of the day.
Yeah, it's Ruth's fun fact of the day. It's a true story. Yeah, happy days.
No, but it is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's been a pleasure, Ruth. We're going to come back to you later on this evening. But right now, we've got to get on with the show.
Oh, that's exciting.
I know, it is exciting. Right now, we're going to show you this little bit, and then we're going to be back very shortly indeed with the fabulous Robert J. Sherman right after this. Don't go anywhere.
You find the fun and snap. The job's a game.
I wanna be like you. I wanna walk like you, talk like you too.
These songs are about family, written by family, like Robert Sherman and Richard Sherman, better known the world over as
The Sherman Brothers. Bang, bang, chitty, chitty, bang, bang, our fine four-fended friend. Bang, bang, chitty, chitty, bang, bang, our fine four-fended friend.
But to understand this family story, we have to begin with the Sherman Brothers' dad, Al Sherman, in the world of Tin Pan Alley. Comes along a love night and day, your heart is always highland flinging. You just begin to live, comes along a love.
The Sherman family wrote the songs that shaped us, nothing less than the songbook of our childhoods. Come on, let's crawl to the ugly bug ball.
To the ball, to the ball.
And a happy time we'll have there, one and all,
At the ugly bug ball.
The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. Their tops are made out of rubber, their bottoms are made out of springs. They're bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one.
Don't let him know why I must leave him, why I must go so far away.
And the astonishing fact that you already know most of the words by heart.
Let's go fly a kite up to the highest height. Let's go fly a kite and send it soaring up.
There were so many fun classic songs that would emerge from those early Disney years.
For a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. The medicine go down. Medicine go down.
Oh, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious, if you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Meow bamboo, meow bamboo. You better never bother with meow bamboo. You can have me out, I'll be rock with shoe, but you better never bother with me out. Bang, boo. You better never bother with me out, bang, boo.
Yes, indeed. Robert J. Sherman, a very good evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Stage to Stream.
Great to be here.
How are you? Are you well?
Doing great, fantastic. Just enjoying London, beautiful London night.
Of course. Now, we've got so much to speak about. I want to, of course, a little bit later on chat about your shows and all the things that you're doing right now, all those. But before that, let's go back into the family history. Let's talk about the Sherman Brothers. Tell us about, the history for our friends out there, and of course, how it sort of was involved with Disney, and of course, how it incorporated you, in your future work.
How they trapped me into this business, this crazy business. So it was over 100 years ago that my grandfather, well, actually, you have to go even further back than that. My great-grandfather came from what's now modern-day Ukraine. He was running away from the Russian Cossack army, the Tsar's army, and he was in around 1903, or no, it was probably, about 1903, and he made his way all the way on foot to Prague, what's now the Czech Republic, and but it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time. It was the second city of that, next to Vienna, and it was. And he ended up becoming the concertmaster, or the court conductor for Emperor Franz Joseph the Second, whose probably biggest, most famous contribution to the world was having a son who ended up getting shot, and thus starting the domino effect of World War I and all the wars that followed. So that was him. My grandfather was his concertmaster, conducted the music, was a brilliant violinist, but came to America about 6 years after that, 1909, and died a penniless musician, playing in Italian restaurants, and when he died, there was in 1948 there was an article that said that they'd found this man in this little knish shop in the Lower East Side, and he had, which by the way is still there, it still exists. I've been there, and he had next to him a violin, and he always talked about this violin. It was his best friend. It turned out that the violin was a Stradivarius. That's why I got into it, because he was nobody of any fame. He just, but he was at that point in his life. But obviously, at one point, he had something. We don't know what happened to the Stradivarius, but earlier than that, around 1916, my grandfather got the bug, and he actually was forbidden by his dad to go into music, but he went into music anyways. And Al Sherman, as the promo for A Spoonful of Sherman talks about, Al became a very popular Tin Pan Alley songwriter, wrote for people like Frank Sinatra, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Bing Crosby, Maurice Chevalier, you name it, he wrote for them. And his two sons also got the bug, but unlike with the grandfather, their father was very much in favor of the two Sherman brothers, my dad and uncle, Robert and Richard, respectively. They very much in favor of the two of them writing. In fact, it was his idea. And then about 10 years after they started writing songs together, they got a call from the head of the music department at Disney Studios. His name was Jimmy Johnston. He said, come in. They'd had a small hit with, actually reasonably, it was number 5 in America, with a young girl named Annette Funicello, who was one of the Mouseketeers. And Annette had this hit with this, and Walt Disney was doing a picture called The Horse Masters. So the Sherman Brothers, my dad and uncle, they wrote this song. They came in and they played it for Walt Disney himself. And Walt actually, he liked it, and he had ordered a couple more songs and a couple more after that for different projects, one of which was The Parent Trap. And that was a massive hit, although the Annette picture, The Horse Masters, wasn't. But the Sherman Brothers ended up writing dozens and dozens of songs for Annette, and then of course came Mary Poppins, which a couple years after that, and they were studio songwriters, the only two studio songwriters that Walt Disney ever hired. The two biggest grossing films of 1964, the biggest grossing film was Mary Poppins, and in 1967, the biggest grossing film was The Jungle Book, and the Sherman Brothers wrote every song in that movie except The Bare Necessities. And it'll never fail. Somebody says, I love your dad's music and your uncle's music, but the one song I love more than anything is The Bare Necessities, and I always have to break it to them. And the Sherman Brothers got an Academy Award two Academy Awards for Mary Poppins, Best Song and Best Song Score. And they were nominated 9 times for Oscars. They've won Grammys, dozens of gold records, and they wrote all the songs from Winnie the Pooh, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which is going to be touring this summer through the UK and Ireland. And what else? They wrote the songs from Charlotte's Web and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. These are non-Disney films. Snoopy Come Home, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, The Slipper and the Rose. You heard a song from that in the promo. Gosh, they wrote songs for Epcot Center and then new songs for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with a stage musical when it came to London and then toured. They did quite well for themselves. And I had the bug. Literally, the earliest memory I have is that I wanted to be a songwriter. My dad had brought home an acetate, the old-fashioned records, right? That you get when you'd have when you do a demo. I'm dating myself here, but I was very, very young when he brought this home, and it was for Snoopy Come Home, and which of course was right in my demographic, and so he's playing this, and I was dancing around to the music, and at least that's my memory. It's hard to, I was 3 years old, 2 years old, and I just knew, and I had this grandfather who was a songwriter, and my dad and uncle, and I just knew that I wanted to do this. And so this goes way, way back. I sometimes feel that I'm the carrier of this great knowledge and I, distilled wisdom of songwriting that's been carried generation after generation.
Yeah, it's amazing, when you talk about the history and all that and that side of it, and of course you've gone on to write your own shows, which we're going to talk about shortly as well. Do you feel that growing up in that sort of environment is definitely what kind of pushed you in that direction?
Oh, no question about it. I knew I wanted to be a songwriter before I could play a note on the piano or even construct a sentence. And I distinctly remember that I had trouble putting together sentences as a small child. I always sort of marveled how my older brothers and sisters and my parents could speak fluidly. I don't know if all kids go through that and thinking, well, how do they put that thought together? I remember thinking that very, very, very young. Never mentioned that, but it's true. And it's so there's no question but my earliest memory is that I wanted to be a songwriter, that I should be a songwriter, and I was never forced into it. It was never something that my dad said, this is what you'll do. I think he got that. I think he was not forced is not the right word. I think he did things voluntarily, but his father and mother, frankly, really wanted the two sons to write songs, and they wanted them to write together. My dad has a great quote. It's probably his most famous quote. He said, in 1950, I was writing the great American novel, because that's what he was into, and poetry. I was writing the great American novel, and Dick, his brother, was writing the great American symphony. And separately, we were digging the great American hole in the ground. Great quote.
Amazing. It's amazing. When you were, when you think back now, is there a song that sort of really appealed to you that now you go, that is a masterpiece, but back then it was just kind of part of your your story, your sort of growing up?
Sherman Brothers, or just generally?
Yeah, well, I think both. In fairness, probably Sherman Brothers as well. That just something that was kind of around at the time that you were sort of identified with, but then now you look back and go, that was
Absolutely. And I'd say that there's probably dozens of them that I could point to and lecture on, frankly. It's the one song, going back to Snoopy Come Home, is a song called At the Beach. It's the first song after the titles roll. And when I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, probably, when I first listened to that song after many years of not having heard it, I remember thinking, wow, it just evoked that ineffable memory, like the scent of a particular flower or something that you haven't thought about, or you think, where does that live in your brain? But it does somewhere. And I remember listening to it and then just contemplating, probably contemplating the orchestration by Don Rolke, who was one of these Hollywood music legends who nobody knows about, but he was within the music business. He was a legend, and I got to meet him shortly before he died, actually, and it was a great thrill for me. And Don Rolke, if you've ever heard Golden Throats, where William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy sing these songs. Gary, did anybody ever tell you look a lot like a young Brian Blessed?
I shall have the voice one day.
The funniest thing, Brian Blessed, he was in my dad's show, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Amazing.
And I got to know him because I worked with him on a project or two. And one of the funniest things he said to me, and he said a lot of funny things. I don't think he was trying to be funny, but he's a character, and as everyone knows. And Brian, he was explaining to me that he was from this town in Yorkshire, and his family were colliers, and that some of them died young. I shouldn't say this is funny. It was funny. I mean, I didn't tell him it was, it's not nothing funny about it, but you think about this booming voice in a coal mine, and then you wonder why they would have died young. I mean, I don't know if they all had that same genetic disposition, but anyways.
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it. I'll get there. I need another 20 years on my voice, but yeah, it'll happen.
The other completely random off subject thought that comes to mind is, you call this stage to screen, or what
stream? So it's stage to stream. So it
I think you call it stage to scream.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah,
because you do the horror stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And you saw that I sent that email through, and
Amazing,
Jack's already responded.
Yes, I'm going to jump on that after. So amazing, thank you.
No, it's. I think there might be something there. I don't know. I just completely went off subject, but I probably good. So that song On the Beach. But also, what I love about it is the visceral way of the lyrics. It's called At the Beach. At your reach, at the beach, is a larky, sparkly wonderland. All the joys and the noise is a music made by a wonder band. Do a handspring, something goes on. But it's there's just something. The magic of going to the beach, especially when you're a small child, and what you, and by the way, California beach, not the Skegness beach. Sorry, not that there's anything wrong. I don't mean to get you in trouble with the tourist.
No, it's fine.
But it's this sort of the magical, the sun and the spray. Watch the surf, catch the spray. There's a million rainbows in bloom today. That was the lyric. Yeah. Amazing. And the orchestration is brilliant by Don Rolke, and the music is very catchy, and it's just this wonderful, and it's this background song. It's not something that you hear, but the orchestration is like nothing you've heard in anything else. But anyways, Don Rolke, I was saying, he did the Golden Throats recording sessions with Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, and which of course is kind of considered music in infamy, but this is one of his masterpieces. So
yeah, amazing. I love it. And I'm going to work on my Brian Blessed now, because I think there's definitely a future career. It's going to happen.
I think it's a character you could play. I mean, he should be in horror movies, and he'd be perfect. Yeah.
So we were speaking earlier, and it's something that's came up. Obviously, throughout everything, what we've got an opportunity now to do is to kind of spread this knowledge and chat amongst everything. With lockdown for you, how has it been? Have you sort of, have you used that to your advantage? Have you kind of progressed? And I know you write musicals, which is amazing. How has it been for you?
Well, look, I'm from the same school of thought that you are. You have to turn these moments into positives, and I think I did. I mean, I'd say I have a number like all of us creatives. I think we've all clung to special projects that we've had. For me, I've retaught myself guitar. I haven't played guitar since my 20s, and I'm 52 now, and I play an acoustic guitar, and I've been learning new techniques on it, and I can play somewhat entertaining. I think it's somewhat entertainingly. We'll see. I'm writing a whole album of songs. I've put together a company, which I'm very excited about, and should be coming up with some interesting news on that in the not too distant future, with a little bit of luck. And what other things have I done during this time? I took on this time to lose weight. There's nothing like having to eat your own cooking to help you lose weight. And I've lost quite a bit, but it's actually been a blessing for me, because the fact that there aren't little cafes open, means that I take my walk, which is the good part, and then I don't find myself sitting down. Coffee's not bad, but then one biscuit becomes 11. And at least for me. So what did Oscar Wilde have? He had a great quote. He said, "I can resist anything in life except temptation." And so I think that this is a time for all of us creatives to use, and I know you have as well, to use this time and to make this. I mean, what I try to say to young people, who I think it's really hard on, because they don't quite, it's for them, when you're 17 years old, you want to, I don't know what the equivalent of the high school prom is here, but this idea of the big dance, the graduation, this is the most important thing in your life. And it's very important. And I think it's very difficult, but for creatives, and I don't know how much of your audience is younger or older, but I think for creatives, we have a special advantage here. And, we got another few months to this to take advantage of this. I mean, I'm kind of, I don't want to say I don't want it to end, because I do, but I know what I'm going to be doing these months, and what I have to finish in these months, because things are going to get started and it's going to become booming again. I don't think that, we can easily fall in. I think a year and a year and a month ago, nobody would have believed we would be in the state that we're in. And now people, certainly in early January, I think people were morose and they thought this will never end. But it will. We're blessed with this miracle, an absolute miracle of not just one, but many vaccines and getting it out there. I think we should be grateful for this and really there was a great sage who once said, "You can't have a thing if you don't appreciate it." So you can have $1 million, but how many rich people are miserable? And it's because they don't appreciate what they have, the opportunity that they have, to share, not just to own, but to actually share with that money and relieve other people's suffering and the joy that they appreciate. And yet, if you have the right attitude, going outside, you can have nothing to your name, but you just take a deep breath of air and you can appreciate that. Appreciation is the key to having a thing, and not feeling entitled is the flip side of that. And I think there's plenty to appreciate. And what I say to young creatives, what I try to get across is, okay, it's a bummer. This is you don't get to be with your friend, but you can use this time without distraction to master something, like me with guitar, or losing the weight, or starting my company, you with your theater. And you're crazy not to, because this is what you can do in this time. And you won't get a time that this is the first time since I was 14 years old that I didn't have somebody to see every day. And actually, the truth is, that changed in July. Even that's, it was only those first few months, but then with Zoom and all of that, even that's sort of taken away. I actually read books for the first time in years. You're always like, you leave them for Christmas time. And so use this time, man. Use it.
Well, it's the thing I've always said. The one thing we've got out of this, or the two things we've got out of this, one is time, because as creatives, we're always like, we're on to the next thing, so you never have time to stop. You're always wanting to do the next thing, but more importantly, especially for me, is the fact that we've actually had chance to talk to people that you would never have the chance to talk, like yourself. This would never have happened if it was just normal life, because everyone has their own life and they go on doing their own thing. But suddenly we can stop, we can embrace technology as much as it is, now with Zoom, which everybody's jumped on, but we can talk to people and have these conversations and get these stories out there, which I think is more important than anything. It's incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a great commercial on television about talking about when this all started and everything. It says, we will look back in 2020 as the year of 2020 perspective, or something to that effect. And it is interesting that 2020 was that year where we really had to look at things in hindsight. And I do think that this is that this time is our time to realize that we can be handed the thing, because look, we've got as a world, I mean, not just a civilization, but as an entire world, we've got this, we've got climate change to deal with, and if we don't deal with it, it'll make COVID look like a picnic. So, and we've got to deal with it as a world. We can't just pretend it's not there. And I somehow think that this is sort of preparation for that bigger idea of getting, in a good way. I think, of we need to work together to solve problems. A problem that is in Myanmar isn't isolated to Myanmar. It's with us right now in Britain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Now let's move on. Let's talk about you and your shows. You've done some amazing musicals, and I've already seen in chat there's somebody jumped on who said they've seen your show. It was amazing. They've asked, are you going to tour it in the future? Let's talk about, first of all, A Spoonful of Sherman. Let's go down that route, and then we'll talk about the other shows you've done as well. So A Spoonful of Sherman, give us some insight into it.
Spoonful of Sherman, it's funny, every project I've ever worked on seemed to sort of come from another project. Spoonful is a little bit different. Spoonful is something that I saw a review that was done in Los Angeles at the Variety Arts Center in 1983. And it was the first act was my grandfather's songs, and the second act was my father and uncle's songs. And I think it was a man and a woman who sang these songs. I was about 14 years old. And I thought, wow, that's great. And one day when I'm a big songwriter, maybe I could be part of it. And I do have a couple songs in Spoonful like that. Spoonful was something that I'd always wanted to do. And there came a time when it made sense to do it. In 2012, sadly, my father, Robert B. Sherman, passed away, and Disney hadn't done a memorial for him. All of my siblings and I lived in different places on the globe. One was in New Mexico, one was in California, one was in Ecuador, one was in London, and myself, and we couldn't. And my dad's book, literally the last big project he was working on. And I recommend it to anybody. It's called Moose: Chapters from My Life. Moose was my dad's nickname. Because he could wiggle his ears and flare his nostrils at the same time, like a moose can, and from his university days. And it's called Moose: Chapters from My Life. It's available on Amazon, audiobook too. I highly recommend it for anybody who's interested. Amazing stories. And we had a London sort of a book launch, I guess they call it. And the problem was if we did a book launch, I have the same name as my father, except different middle names. And if I do a book launch and I speak as the book's editor, there are going to be people who come there to this launch and they're going to think, oh, he's dead, and who's this Robbie Sherman, what did I come to? And then if I sign the book as the editor, what's that? Do I do it? Do I not do it? And I thought, there's something so morose about that, something so depressing. I thought, he wasn't about depressing. He created joy and love and beautiful music. And why don't we do a musical celebration of his life, the lifetimes and songs that filled his life. He always had music around because all of us in the family played music. His brother, of course, and my grandfather and his grandfather, and then me in his later years, because my dad lived the last 10 years in London. We shared a flat for the first couple, and then I lived in the flat next to him. And so we always had music around him. And I thought, that's a great way to do this. And a great music director who I worked with, I don't know if you've heard of him, Colin Billing. He's down in Bournemouth now. Colin had talked to me about possibly doing a review a year earlier. And I said, well, what do you think? And so we talked about different ideas and we put together this, and it was done very fast. And we had some wonderful talent in the original cast. They're on the CD. And it was, it was Emma Williams, Charlotte Wakefield, Stuart Matthew Price, and Greg Castiglione, who's wonderful. They're all wonderful. And we were very fortunate to have them. And Colin was the music director. And I wrote the script, and I was the narrator. And I don't think I was quite so good, but as a narrator, because I'm not a professional performer. But it was a terrific show. And because we did this right at the same time as the opening of the movie Saving Mr. Banks, it got a lot of notice in London, and including the Times. The Times wrote a review, and the review gave us 4 stars, and so that spawned more interest, and it was only 2 nights the first time we did it. And then, so we did another run of it, which was longer. And then we did another run a year later. And then in 2018, we did this terrific tour, which was much more than just a cabaret. It was a proper review, and still the same format, except that I was no longer the narrator. We had the individual singers doing the narration, and that was so it was a cast of 5, 2 pianos, very simple show, but it was lovely. And we did 25 cities throughout the UK and Ireland, and I'm very proud of that production. I think it was great. It went to Singapore, it went to San Jose, California. It was going to be in South Africa, but then COVID happened, and the rest is history, as they say.
Of course. Now, you just mentioned Saving Mr. Banks. How did that kind of, when you watched that, how did that reflect on the family life? Was it kind of accurate, or sort of, did you feel it was exaggerated? How was it for you when you sort of watched that back?
Well, that film used my dad's book as a source. It used Moose as a source because in 2010, about 3 years before the movie came out, my dad was still around, and he authorized that the Mary Poppins chapter, because it's not really about my father and uncle. My father and uncle play sort of secondary characters in the which is weird. By the way, that's surreal to watch your parents being. But not just my dad, but there's a scene at the opening where they have Joyce Sherman, my mother. And it's just, my mother was not a celebrity. And here, the person playing Joyce Sherman, they got somebody who looked like my mother a bit. And it was, which is just sort of, it's surreal to see family members there. Accurate. Look, it's largely a caricature. And what I've found is that anybody who's, I was just watching this thing with Prince Harry and James Corden. You saw it, and he's talking about The Crown, this Netflix series, and he said, it's a fictionalization. Nobody is happy with the way they're portrayed unless they are the main consultant or the writer. and I think that I actually asked them to make a couple changes that were not accurate, but and you have to remember these things are always at some point fictionalized, but it was harmless. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear that, because sometimes it can be like it's a complete rewriting and that never happened. But the fact that it was close to.
No, as far as the film, I mean, the film couldn't have been more fiction if they tried. I mean, really, it was. Walt Disney wasn't even in Los Angeles. He specifically, because he knew Pamela Travers was a pain in the neck. And so what he did is he went to his house in Palm Springs so that he could avoid him. And it's a very interesting sort of nod to the truth, if you will, in the movie, because the minute Walt Disney walks in the room, she was infamous for these tape recordings. I'd always known about these, but they made a whole movie about it. And these tape recordings, and she kind of, unfortunately, she kind of was her own worst enemy from history's point of view, because she made sure that the microphone was next to her mouth, because the whole machine, it was a big reel to reel, the old, again, I'm dating myself here, the big old reel to reel tape machines. And so she had the microphone. So she sounds like she's very domineering in the conversations. But if you listen to it with with that in mind, you realize she wasn't quite the battle axe that she's made out to be in the movie. That said, she was a pain in the neck. I mean, and the scriptwriter used her favorite scenario in the movie was actually something straight out of my dad's book. Even the dialogue was straight out. They just attributed it to Walt Disney but it was actually from my dad, and it was the whole thing that there's no red in London. That's absolutely true. That actually happened. She said, "Well, I don't want there to be any color red in the movie because red is not a color that you see in London." And then my dad says, from the narrator's point of view, of the narrator of his book, he says, "Well, what do you mean there's no red? What about the Beefeater, the Beefeaters costumes and the red buses and the red phone boxes and the red the St. George's the cross of St. George on the flag is red, and all of these things, and it's the blood of the dragon, and who George slew." So that stuff, that was straight out of the book, but that was my dad's words. These weren't Walt Disney's and Pamela Travers' words. But that's fine. That's why my dad loaned them the book, so that they could actually put some truth into the thing, albeit a fictionalized version of the truth, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Okay, we're going to talk very shortly indeed about Bumble Scratch. But first of all, we're going to have a little bit of a look at, I believe this is Darren Day in this role. Yeah. This is Bumble Scratch. We'll be back just after this.
London is a festering hive, detestably deprived,
especially now in 1665.
Diseases rampant everywhere,
Like the fleas in me hair, sorry mate.
so you've got to enjoy your life.
While you're alive.
Melbourne, Bumble Scratch, what rot you incur? Corrosion for a bruise in your neck, tad and a cur. I have often like to smack you and then out of your fur. Oh, Melbourne, what you afraid of Melbourne? Why you hiding Melbourne? What you made of Melbourne? I'll find you, yes sir.
All creatures can be sneaky, deceitful, crass and cheeky, and humans aren't immune to this abuse. Yeah, no humans have no alibi and no valid reason why, but at least the rat has got an excuse. At least the rat has got an excuse. Good boy.
I feel safe with you near, and I'm grateful that I found you. It's abundantly clear that we could have stayed two strangers who never would have met. We'd never be the wiser, recognizing our regret. He calls me adorable, absolutely unignorable, the oracle of adorability. That's me, 'cause she's the girl who makes me sing. For her I do most anything, 'cause she calls me adorable, adorable me. Melbourne Bumblescratch is an unfaithful creature, incapable of giving his heart to anyone.
What is this? This to be my test?
I may be the one rat in all the world who knows you for your true talent.
It took too long to realize, but Perry's death revived these eyes. The path he walked was just and wise. Now to my surprise, I see the world through Perry's eyes. You are a ghost.
La 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 la, I cannot hear you. It would appear your words got garbled in your throat.
Well, then, I'll say again, my dear old friend, you are a ghost.
You can't kill me. I'm already dead.
When this will clear, then love will appear all around you. And then you'll have found the road that leads to home.
We will be back.
Absolutely incredible. Love that. And you can't kill me. I'm already dead. That's my part. It was made for me.
No, I have to tell you something. I wrote that with Brian Blessed in mind.
I was
Isn't
there.
that funny? Yeah, I mean, he was to be my pirate, but he had other engagements.
Well, you see, now you've got that. You've got a look-alike, so I can do that. Amazing.
We got a good guy in that as well. Xavier. Oh gosh, what's his first name?
He looks incredible. I mean,
yeah. He's a famous actor. He's been in like a million Lloyd Webber things. Anyways, it's funny, that show. That show was probably the most irrelevant subject matter. It was about the plague of London. I was attracted to the idea that it was the Great Plague and it ends with the fire. It starts with the plague, ends with the fire. Very dramatic. And I'd always wanted to write a through-sung musical. It sort of always been on my to-do list. I wouldn't do it again. It's very hard. Very hard to do it well, I think, because it's not the main songs. It's the recitative. It's the connecting songs. Because for one thing, you want to have that contrast. You want to have a slow song and then a fast song and then a minor key and then a major key, that kind of contrast going through. So then when you're workshopping the thing, the director rightly says, I think we can cut this scene. Well, wait, if you cut that scene, that means you don't have a fast song. So you have two slow songs next to each other. And so it just makes editing, which is an absolute necessity. You have to be willing to edit your own work or allow other people's editing, as as a writer, and it just makes it, because I'm not that fast a writer, and it was a real bear. But talk about a show becoming suddenly relevant. It's all about the Great Plague.
Yeah,
and the theme of it is how the plague isolates people, and if any plague has ever isolated people, COVID is also one of it. So I think there'll be a future relevance. Either one of two things will happen. Either people will say, wow, I totally get that, man. Or they'll say, Jesus, man, rats and plague. I don't ever want to. I've had people actually curse me out and tell me that, a lot of good, fine people die. A very old man told me, who was an influential person. He said, a lot of good people died in the plague. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like I was making a mockery of it. And I said, well, sorry.
No, I think these things need to be written about, and if you can come up with that sort of thing, it's incredible. And seeing that, Darren Day, amazing, it looks absolutely amazing. It's something I really want to see as well, and like you say, it's relevant now, so. Amazing. How did that kind of come about? What was the sort of inspiration from that? Because it's kind of a move away from your past and and your own sort of stuff that you've done. So how did that sort of to drop into going from a spoonful of Sherman and your history to going, let's write about the plague?
Well, actually, I started it and wrote most of it in the early 2020s when I first moved to London. It was shortly after my mother passed away, and that was very, very sad, and it was something that was very heavy on me. And as the person who was, if you will, taking care of my dad, although he was reasonably independent, I'm not suggesting he needed to be taken care of, but I was, I was the adult, and he was an older man at that point, and his walking was difficult. My mother's loss was very present in my life, and this show was very thematically was about that. And I had a trainer, because I've always struggled with my weight, and so I'm running through Hyde Park, and this lovely trainer Samantha, I'm running with her, and she says, and I say, Sam, don't look now, but Perry the Plague Rat is running us on your side. And the weirdest thing, because the park's filled with rats, and there goes the tourist bureau against me again. and this rat was like running, it was like jogging alongside us. It was the weirdest thing in the middle of the sunshine, and only by the serpentine little lake, that the artificial man-made lake that they have there, and I can't stand the things, and I said Perry the Plague Rat, and I just thought that was really funny. And I was at the Globe Theatre, also in London. Remember, I'm still a tourist, I'm still living, and I still do. I still find Britain generally an amazing place and fascinating in every place in it. And so I was at the Globe Theatre, and they had on this rack, and this is something you'd never see in America. They had these little plague rat puppets because it's the Globe, it's the time of Shakespeare, and they had these and I just thought that was hilarious that they were selling these child toy plague rats to British children and anybody else who was around. Just such a weird thing to do, and something about it tickled my fancy, and I thought it was very funny. I think humor is important in a show, and it the bug sort of got me, and it was weird because I'm not fond of rats. I'm not fond of mice at all. And yet this thing sort of was a burning thing. I was possessed to write this thing, and it took me a long time. It took me 3 years. It's about death and mourning and loss and finding redemption for the unredeemable. And like a plague rat, I mean, how does he find redemption? And how's this creature? And that's what the story's about. So I found it very rich and very dramatic. And if you're writing songs, you don't want to write songs about mundane things. And if you're going to do a through musical, I thought even the bridging moments were dramatic. And so that loaned itself to that.
Amazing. Love it. And absolutely fantastic. And I can't wait to see this. It needs to happen. Ruthie, we're going to go to Ruthie right now because social media has gone insane tonight with questions. Just people wanting to talk to you. So I'm not going to keep you to myself. I'm going to.
Who the hell does this American think he is writing about our national treasure, the rat? I know.
It's beautiful. And
the answer is, I have no idea. I don't know who he is.
Ruthie, are you over there?
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, good. Okay. So social media is going crazy this evening, isn't it?
Certainly is, yes. We've got questions flying in left, right and centre today.
Okay, give us some questions for our good friend here.
Sure. Hi, Robert. How are you?
Great. How are you, Ruthie?
I'm very good, thank you. Right, we've got so many questions, and we're going to start off with a few questions based on A Spoonful of Sherman. Now, we've got Claire Nicholson who's popped into the chat, and she's been fortunate enough to see the show twice when it was playing in Eden Court in Inverness in Scotland. She says it's a fabulous show.
I was up in Inverness for that.
Oh, wow, great. Well, yes, she was actually working in the theatre up there for that one, so we're fortunate enough to see it twice, the lucky thing. But we want to know, are there any plans for A Spoonful of Sherman to tour, perhaps in the UK again?
There are no specific plans for it to tour again, but I definitely foresee a vibrant life for it, and very well might tour. But I'd want to make sure that the tour was very supported, and there was plenty of time to market it properly, and so that we can really get it around. I see this show as being a show that tours and tours and tours, like the what's the one, I can't remember the name, but there are shows that are shows like that, the same size, that just tour and tour for years and years, and the music is certainly deserving of it, and it's a surprisingly engaging show, because oftentimes reviews aren't engaging, and I think that there's a compelling story behind it, if I do say so myself.
Sure.
But thank you. I hope it tours as well. That'd be great.
Can I just jump in and say, Darren Day, I sent him a message and said, you're on the show tonight. And he said, amazing, hope you're both well. So he says hello. Great.
Tell him he's my favorite rat. Darren was kind of my alter ego in a way, because he is exactly to up into the 24 hours. He's one day younger than I am. He was born on July 17th in the same year. And I was born on July 16th.
There you go. I'm gonna send that to him later. But it's nice to pass that on. Ruthie, give us another one.
Okay, well, we're still sticking with the Spoonful of Sherman. So we've got Harry Stedman. He's popped in, and he wants to know, how was it when you were in the creative process? Was it hard to cram a whole legacy of music history into just a few hours of stage time?
Well, it's hard to write anything, I think. Thank you for the question. It's hard to write anything. The truth is, when I first wrote, I think you choose the songs. You in that particular show, we chose the songs to begin the show with, and how we're going to begin it, how we ended Act 1, how we began Act 2, how we ended Act 3, roughly how much time we wanted to spend, the basic structure, and then you sort of build it out. And I used the songs to accent the story I was trying to tell. So it wasn't just that we used, for example, the song "There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow," which, if you don't know, it was a song that the Sherman Brothers wrote for the New York World's Fair. But I explained that this is the optimism that was felt by the Sherman family. They had this wonderful gig working for Walt Disney, and who was incredibly supportive of them creatively. And the idea that there was a great, big, beautiful tomorrow was the optimism that existed not just in my family, but all through America and the world. Americans were going to the moon. John Kennedy was president. Anything was possible. And so you use the songs to accent the story, not just, and here's a great song that we did such and such a time. You walk a fine line on this, because obviously you also want to get all the hits in and the famous ones. But yeah, that's kind of how I approached it.
Amazing. I'm going to jump in here because we've got a sort of a thing going on in the chat right now. So
I wasn't going to highlight that.
Well, yeah, no, I am, because
what's going on?
Well, Steve Hewlett said Robert's a fellow rat himself.
I am a fellow rat.
Yeah,
the water rats were actually a part of the reason I came up with Bumble Scratch. My dad had some, so my day job was, in many ways still is, was basically being my dad's assistant. Now I manage the estate, but I was his assistant, and he had the opening of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and I'll never forget, because you don't have this kind of thing like the water rats, and I assume, well, you know what the water rats are. I don't know the oldest show business fraternity in the world, and it goes back to 1889, and it's a charitable organization, and we have a lot of fun. And there's some wonderful performers, and I was very fortunate to be considered for candidacy and elected to be in the Water Rats. I'm very honored.
Amazing.
But I have to say, so my dad said, Robbie, I've got these CDs or posters. I think it was posters, because they do a lot of charitable things and auctions, and so we've got these posters. You need to bring it to this address. So I brought it down to what was the Water Rats Hall, and I walk into this lodge, and if you've ever been there, have you been there, Gary?
I've walked past it. I mean, I'm constantly trying to get in, but it's a long haul.
we'll resubmit you, and you can't spell star without rat.
Exactly.
And believe me, we got plenty of backwards rats, so I'm sure we could do something to push that along. And so in this hall, it's an amazing, it's a beautiful hall, and I'm thinking, what the hell have I just walked into? It's like, I wasn't sure if it was a religious sect, and they have these statues of rats and these wood sculptures and these trophies, and I'm thinking, and I sort of thought that London had a love affair with the rat. There was a wonderful little pub. I think it went out of business, called the Rat and Parrot. I mean, you have to understand, in America that would be like that's like asking for trouble. The Rat and Parrot, and anyways, and so that was definitely that was part of the inspiration for Bumble Scratch too. It was a lot of things sort of came together at once on Bumble Scratch.
No, that's good, because that conversation went on, obviously, just from that comment. Steve Hewlett said, Robert's a fellow water rat himself, and then Rollo came back with, did Robert just say he's fond of rats? And then Andrew Van Buren...
I did not say I'm fond of rats. I tell Rollo I'm fond of Rollo, and Steve too, but other than that, I'm not really fond of rats.
Well, then after that, Andrew Van Buren jumped in and said, some rats are good brother rats. It's all happening right there. But you have it now that Bumble Scratch was part of that process.
Bumble Scratch should be the official musical of the Water Rats.
Absolutely. I love it.
It was the year after we premiered it that at the Adelphi in London that I became a water rat.
Amazing. Ruthie, give us another one. We're running out of time this evening. We're rapidly coming to the end of this. It's been amazing, but give us another question this evening.
Sure. Okay. Right, we've got JJ. He's popped in. We love JJ. He's been on the show before. He wants to know, this is brushing on when you were talking about the Snoopy section of the show before. Yes. He wants to know, how did the Sherman Brothers end up composing the music for Snoopy Come Home, instead of Vince Guaraldi?
That's a great question. I can research that, and I might or might not be able to find an answer. I know I've heard them talk about this. I think they wanted a musical version, and you have to understand the Sherman Brothers in the late 60s, early 1970s were at the top of their game. They were like the Beatles, but for children's and family musicals. So everybody, a lot of people wanted to work with the Sherman Brothers. Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay. A lot of people don't know this, for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is where you get great characters like the child catcher and things like all of these sort of darker elements that Dahl was so used to. And he only wanted to work with the Sherman Brothers. Had he lived another decade, probably all of the shows, including Willy Wonka, the Sherman Brothers was his choice, but the producer had other ideas, mostly because he was cheap, and not that the Sherman Brothers were that expensive, but there it is. So, and there were some good songs in that show, but I think the Sherman Brothers could have done real justice to Chocolate Factory and Matilda and that kind of a thing. James and the Giant Peach. That was something. Everybody wanted to work with the Sherman Brothers. They worked, but I don't know. It was Vince, and I'm blanking on his last name with the G. Grimaldi.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Am I saying his name right? Was he a songwriter or just a composer? He may not have written songs, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But I'll look into it and get back to you, Gary.
Amazing. Yeah, well, I mean, JJ's, he's a big fan, and that's a amazing sort of. Steve Hewlett's jumped in. Robert looks great, and I remember when in the lodge, he and Jimmy Osmond knew each other. Have you ever collaborated?
I haven't, but my brother did a TV show with him and the Sherman Brothers. You have to understand the Osmonds, because it's all the family music stuff. So in 1984 to 86, they did a few episodes over that period of time. It wasn't a long-lasting show and a terrible distribution deal. It was seen by nobody. I mean, after a couple viewings, sadly. Nobody's fault. It's just sometimes you don't get a good distribution deal. And it was called the Enchanted Musical Playhouse. And it was absolutely terrific. My brother wrote some great scripts for it. And the Sherman Brothers wrote some wonderful songs for this thing. And it was produced by Jimmy Osmond. So, and Jimmy was the wunderkind of business. He still is, although obviously he's slowed down a lot because of the stroke. He was always he was the brains of the business brains in that family, for sure, no question, and the youngest as well. And Jimmy and I have spent time together. I've hung out with him when he's toured and been on the bus been on the big tour bus. Which, I have to say, going on a rock tour is one thing, but to do it with Mormons is a different experience altogether, I have to say. And very, very wholesome, very wholesome.
Amazing. Listen, we're running out of time this evening. It's been
I was married 3 times that night. No divorces.
Love it.
Anyway. Sorry, Jimmy, if you're listening.
It's amazing. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Stacia Stream. Thank you. It's been wonderful. Such an insight. Everybody's happy out there. We've got people still coming in with questions and statements. Lucy Rose Rollerson said, I love Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. It's amazing. Such a love for you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Listen, Gary, have me back, and we need to do a Brian Blessed. We need to get you in Brian Blessed role. I really think it just occurs to me now that you have this.
It's going to happen. We need to make that happen. We need to get you back. Definitely. We've got so much more to talk about. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Robert J. Sherman. Thank you. Wonderful.
Hey, lovely to see you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
How amazing was that? Absolutely love that. Thank you, Robert J. Sherman, for joining us here on SafeStream.tv. My mind is blown. What an incredible insight to your history and, of course, all the wonderful stuff you're doing. Did you enjoy that, Ruthie?
I did, yes.
It was good, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It's almost time to go.
Oh.
I know, but we're back tomorrow. Who we got tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, we have got the fabulous Mr. Gary Dunn. He's going to be here. And, of course, we've got Ricky Allen as well.
Gary Dunn is my twin brother.
Is he though?
Yeah. Absolutely true.
Oh.
Have you got a sort of thing to leave us with?
A thing?
You know,
Oh,
like.
It's not working, is it?
No,
It's not working.
No, it is working.
Is it?
Steel drums are my favourite drum.
Oh, they totally
Thought of the
are.
day, whatever you want.
Well, loofahs grow on trees.
Brilliant.
Let's get social.
You can do that tomorrow night, and of course,
It's Ruth's fun fact of the day.
Ruthie, it's been fun this evening. Thank you.
It's been good.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Of course, Ruth's back tomorrow evening. See you later, Ruthie. Say goodbye, Ruthie.
Goodbye, Ruthie.
Yeah, we're going to be back tomorrow night with Gary Dunn and who else did you say?
Ricky Allen.
Ricky Allen.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a cracking night tomorrow evening if you want to join us. In the meantime, from us all, thanks for joining us. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow. Until we can get back in the theatre, stay safe wherever you are. Good night. Stage to Stream Radio is live now, playing the hits of the musicals 24/7. Simply join us at www.stagetostream.tv. Stage to Stream Radio, keeping theatre alive.